Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Pitzmann Overture Gleam. This watch is available from Pitzmann.com for $549 which is €520. The Overture is available in three colour options: Gleam, which is navy, Forest, which is green, and Dawn, which is blue. Of the three colour options, I think this Gleam navy version is the best looking. Pitzmann are a micro brand. They were founded in 2021 and they're based in Seoul in Korea. So firstly, let's look at the leather travel case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a leather travel case which is protected by this cardboard outer box. As you can see, the lid has Pitzmann and Seoul. The lid is a very snug fit because of the vacuum effect. This one removes the lid, and as you can see, inside we have the travel case. You can pull down the flap. Now, I always like to see a leather travel case. Pitzmann deserve credit because in the mid-tier, often micro brands will use the default option of a plastic or cardboard watch box at this price point, between €500 and €600. But this is a very well executed leather travel case, flawless stitching throughout, good attention to detail, and we've got Pitzmann and Seoul printed on the flap. Stainless steel popper, and the interior is fully upholstered with a contrasting dark grey velour fabric to a good standard. The watch sits on a padded pillow cushion, as one would expect, nicely upholstered. And the interior is finished very well with the grey velour fabric, and this is excellent presentation, and I really like genuine leather travel cases. It makes a refreshing change from just a cardboard or plastic watch box only. Now, in the base, you have a drawer that you withdraw, as you can see, and inside that houses two items, which I'll show you. We have the warranty card. Now, I'm pleased to report that Pitzmann watches are covered by a 2-year international warranty, which is very good, and they deserve credit for this because often micro brands will only provide 12 months of warranty. This Overture is covered by a 2-year warranty, and one also gets the owner's instruction manual, which is in the form of a fold-out leaflet, as you can see. Clear, concise diagrams which detail the operation of the movement used, which is the ETA F07.402 quartz. So it details setting the time, and it's very clear and concise. Right, so with regards to the dimensions, we have a 39mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 46mm. We have a thickness of 8.5mm and a lug width of 20mm. The bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the 2-button push clasp, and as you can see, it's signed to a high standard with Pitzmann engraved in high definition engraving, and we've also got the button to activate the micro adjustment. Quality of the clasp is excellent, nice mirror polished bevel to it, no sharp edges, no burrs, doesn't have sharp corners, and I really like the contrast in the brushed satin finish to the flanks, brushed satin finish to the top side, which has a beautiful lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel, and that contrasting large mirror polished bevel which marks the transition. 137 grams with all the links in the bracelet, so it's a lightweight piece, it doesn't have heft, it feels very comfortable at 39mm. 120 meters of water resistance is strong specification, and it has sapphire crystal with AR coating. Now, as you can see, they've made the correct choice by using a flat sapphire crystal rather than double domed. The benefit of this is they have been able to reduce the thickness of the piece down to only 8.5mm thick. If they had used an automatic, they would have had to increase the thickness to over 10mm, but the quartz is very thin, and therefore they've made it with a very flat case back and a very flat sapphire crystal. Now, there's a blue tint to the AR coating. It does work very well, but I think this piece could be further enhanced if they changed the blue tinted AR coating for clear AR coating, but however, this is subjective. Some collectors prefer blue tinted AR coating. I personally prefer clear because I think clear AR coating would show off the colours in the dial better rather than having the blue tint to it, but it does work very well. The clarity is excellent, and it does reduce the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished applied indices and the silver mirror polished handsets, which are finished to a very high standard. So the indices and the hands are infilled with BGW9 Superluminova, and they are done to a very high standard. Now, with regards to the coloured dial, the inspiration of the Overture is raindrops on a window, and the way the raindrops catch the light on a window, they have bright colours, as you can see. And if you look at the quality of the printing to this dial, it is exceptional. And this is something that Overture have spent a lot of time doing, perfecting the dial printing. The paint isn't applied flat, it actually has a 3D effect to it, so it does look like raindrops, and it's just beautiful the way it catches the light. The background has a glossy finish to it. This is navy blue, which in low light conditions actually looks black, but in direct lights or bright lights you can see that it is in fact dark navy, and it contrasts very well with the application of the different colours, which are like raindrops catching the light. But I think it would just look clearer if it had clear AR coating rather than the blue tint. Blue tinted AR coating does work well with blue dials, but generally it looks better with lighter blue dials, sunburst dials and electric blue dials. When you have a navy blue dial which is very dark like this, it almost looks black. I think clear AR coating works better because the blue tinted AR coating does dull the bright colours on the dial. So interesting dial, and they deserve credit for coming up with something different with the dial design, because they could have used the default option of a monochrome dial. They could have just used enamel black or sunburst black as per so many micro brands, because that is popular. But this coloured dial really is very interesting and very aesthetically pleasing, so it's a work of art really. So with regards to the finishing, the bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the top side of it, as you can see, brush satin finished. It has a nice mirror polished chamfer to it, and then the edge of it is also brush satin finished. The quality of the finishing to this bezel is some of the best I've seen. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's low profile, so it allows the flat sapphire crystal, the bevel on the edge of it, to project above it, which catches the light. No sharp edges to it, and the mirror polishing and the brush satin finishing is exceptional. Brush satin finishing to the top of the flanks to the case, and also the flanks, you can see. Beautiful lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel. This is clearly mid-tier level finishing. One doesn't see this kind of fine graining to the 316L grade stainless steel on a low-tier piece. Nice crisp edges which mark the transition between the top of the case and the flanks on the lugs, and it's also got a nice mirror polished bevel machined on the edge of the tips of the lugs, which add interest, and it's just beautifully finished. No sharp edges to the transitions, and the undercut is also well deburred. It doesn't have a sharp edge which digs into the wrist or scratches the skin. It's been chamfered and deburred very well. Nice crisp edges without any bevels, but we do have that tip which is mirror polished. So nice angular profile and a nice curved undercut. Absolutely gorgeous brush satin finishing. Male end links. I think this piece could be further enhanced if they introduced female pivoted end links, but I understand that Pitzmann worked very hard to get the perfect fit of the male end links. If you look at the profiling, the curved shape of the end link, you can see it perfectly matches the curved shape of the lugs, and that's something very hard to get. There's no play in the end link whatsoever. It's a really tight, snug fit, so the tolerances on the head of the piece and the male end link are very good. One detail I really like is this is a brush satin finished bracelet, but rather than just using the default option of an oyster style bracelet, they've used this angular profile. It looks rather like a hexad bracelet with those angular facets, as you can see. Now if I open the bracelet links, you can see every single individual link has been mirror polished to a flawless standard. So rather than just leaving the edges to the angular links, they haven't just brush satin finished the bracelet links throughout. The top side and underside and flanks are all brush satin finished to a beautiful lustre, but in between the links, the angular bevels have all been individually mirror polished, and this is very time consuming and of course increases production costs. But the end effect is one has this beautiful bracelet that just doesn't have a brush satin finished lustre. It also has the mirror polished facets to it. The bevels are all mirror polished in between each of the links. And it articulates very smoothly. The tolerances are very good. It doesn't rattle. There's no extra play in it. and it's clearly got excellent quality control because we've got nice smooth articulation, but it doesn't feel like a slack and sloppy bracelet. The pins feel nice and tight in the links, and I love the way that those mirror polished bevels catch the light. And I personally prefer a 20 to 16 taper, but I understand a 20 to 18 is necessary because of the thickness of the micro adjustment clasp, as you can see. So it does actually look correctly proportioned for a 39mm head of the piece. One of my favourite aspects is the clasp, and this is something I've only seen on a high-tier piece, a Glashütte original, and that was a Pano date, and that was costing in excess of €14,000, so clearly a high-tier piece. And that had a similar push-button micro adjustment. So rather than having to take this off the wrist, you can actually use the quick adjustment when it's on wrist, and I'll demonstrate that to you. If you look, it's solid mil 316L grade stainless steel to the internals, and again, beautiful luster to it, no sharp edges, no burrs. The hinge pins are a good tight fit. All three pins, you've got the hinge pin here in the centre and the clasp, all three are tight, so it doesn't wobble, feels very well machined. So beautiful luster to it. Now I'll show you the underside to the micro adjustment. This is a very well engineered micro adjustment clasp, as you can see. The mechanism is outstanding, the finishing is outstanding, and I'll demonstrate the adjustment. You can actually deploy this on wrist, you don't need to take it off to use the micro adjustment. The 2-button push clasp snaps shut with a nice positive click. It's got a firm resistance to the two triggers. Often with 2-button push clasp, the triggers feel light and they just don't feel like they're going to be reliable and durable long term. But Pitzmann have made the correct decision because they've used very heavily sprung loaded triggers. You have to press in with your thumb and index finger the 2-button push triggers firmly, so it's not going to accidentally deploy and open. Now, as you can see, it has a button externally, so you can grip the bracelet with your thumb and index finger with your right hand, and you simply press, your thumb and second finger, and then you can use your index finger to press the button. It deploys the quick adjust on wrist. You don't need to take the watch off the wrist. So for example, in warmer weather or when you're active and the wrist expands, you don't need to take off the watch and then use the quick adjustment clasp. You can simply press the button and pull the bracelet out of the clasp while it's on wrist. And it works very well because I've now got a full index finger of extension. So it will extend by a full 10mm of adjustment. And as I've detailed, the only time I have seen this on a watch was the Glashütte original Panadate, which is a high-tier piece costing €14,000. This is a mid-tier piece costing €520, and that is the level of quality. That mechanism is very good. So I'll show you the mechanism of it. Now to move it in, you simply press the button externally again, and you can feed the bracelet links back in fully. And they've got a nice positive click. So you press the button to deploy it, and then you press the button to get it to move back in. And it clicks into position very solidly. It's got a nice solid click. You can hear it, it's audible, so you know that it's locked back in. And it deploys very smoothly. And pushing it back in, it's got that nice positive clicking mechanism. You have to press the button, it can't accidentally ratchet back in. Good 10mm of adjustment. So it works very well, feels very solid, doesn't have lots of play in it, nice tight tolerance to it. Pitzmann really deserve credit for this because I like to see this kind of innovation on a mid-tier piece, because this is a high-tier level mechanism used on a mid-tier piece costing €520. So I'll show you the case back. It's one of my favourite aspects because, as you'll know from my previous reviews, I dislike bubble back case backs that make the watch sit proud on the wrist. I like watches to sit low profile and snug to the wrist, and this is the benefit of using the quartz ETA caliber F07.402, because it is a very thin quartz movement, and rather than using a bubble back case back, this has 120 meters of water resistance, but just look how flat that case back is in the case. It's perfect. Now the benefit of having a flat case back is it's very comfortable against the wrist. It sits perfectly flat, Rather than a bubble back case back making the head of the piece sit tall on the wrist, this piece doesn't feel top heavy, it feels very snug. If you look at the male end links, they're finished to a very good standard, but they've got quick release spring bars. And again, Pitzmann deserve credit because often brands will use conventional spring bars and one has to use a spring bar tool to exchange the bracelet for a strap. Quick release spring bars negate the need for a spring bar tool, so that's very well thought through. Quality of the case back finishing is very good. As you can see, it's engraved with Overture to high definition standard, and we've also got the raindrops as per the raindrops on the painted dial, so very good continuity of design. The milled slots are very well executed in the solid 316L grade stainless steel case back. No sharp edges, no burrs. It doesn't rub or irritate the wrist. The quality of the engraving is done very well because it doesn't feel rough or sharp. It feels very smooth against the wrist, and it's a perfectly flat case back. So the finishing, the deburring of the engraving and the case back is very high tier level. And I just love the fact it's perfectly flat, and this watch is only 8.5mm thick. Right, so let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel, screw down crown, knurled finish to it. It's got a matte bead blasted effect to the background of it, and it's engraved with the Pitzmann brand emblem to a good standard, as you can see. Sorry, embossed with the Pitzmann brand emblem. Nice proportions to it. Often it's the case with 39mm daily wear pieces. Micro brands have a tendency to oversize the crown. They make the crown like a dive piece crown, and it's unnecessary. This is well finished. It's well proportioned, and it's recessed into the right hand flank of the case slightly. And it means that it doesn't dig into the back of your hand. When you flex the wrist, this crown doesn't protrude too far from the right hand flank. It's not going to stick into your wrist because it's not oversized. The proportion is correct. So let's test the screw down crown execution. Nice and smooth. It's got a medium resistance to it. I'm not going to say it's light or silky smooth because one can feel the friction of the threading, but it unscrews with a very low number of turns, so it's not a crown you have to keep turning and turning and turning to unscrew. But yet it does provide 120 meters of hermetic seal, which is strong specification. For a daily wear piece, 50 to 100 meters is acceptable. 120 exceeds the necessary, but it's smooth. It does unscrew very easily, and it pops out with a nice light pop. So this is powered by the ETA F07.402 quartz, which is Swiss made, and there's no phantom date setting position. Pulling it out to the first click hacks the movement. You can see the second hand stops dead, it stops ticking, and we're now in the time setting position. So it has a very light resistance to the gearing. The movement only has 3 joules. Feels very smooth. Clockwise and anti-clockwise. Minimal back play to it. When you rotate the crown, clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's an immediate response. The minute hand begins to move quickly. I don't like movements that have back play in the gearing, but this one is responsive. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice light click, and you can see the second hand begins to tick around the dial once again. So let's test screwing it back down. Instant thread pickup, so there's a good interface between the internal thread of the screw down crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. One has to give it a good firm push. It's a characteristic of the ETA F07.402 that it's very sprung loaded. The winding stem has a spring loaded action, so unlike other movements where you just push the crown back in and it clicks, you really have to push against the spring on this. It's very sprung loaded, but the threads pick up very well, and there's a low number of turns, so you don't have to keep turning the crown continually to get it to pick up. So it's smooth, but one can feel the friction of the threads. I don't mind that because a lot of the friction in this crown is caused by the large rubber O-ring gaskets, which provide 120 meters. And I understand this is something that Pitzmann perfected because they wanted to go beyond 100 meters of hermetic seal. They wanted to make this better than other offerings in the mid-tier at the 500 to 600 euro price point. So they increased the water resistance rating from 100 to 120 just to give it the edge over competitors. And so therefore it does have thick rubber O-ring gaskets inside the crown tube and also the crown itself. So 120 is strong specification, but one can feel the extra friction because it's compressing those gaskets to give it the hermetic seal required. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, but I'm pleased to report that this does fit my 8-inch wrist, as you can see. And I'm just going to deploy it to its maximum. There. So this is now a maximum extension on the quick adjust clasp. And you can see I can easily slip an index finger underneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. So this will comfortably fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist with no difficulties whatsoever. Now, I personally prefer a 20 to 16 taper, which I think is the ultimate, but however, I appreciate in order to house this reliable mechanism, they needed to make it thick enough and wide enough and also have enough depth. So they've used an 18mm taper. In this case, it is acceptable because the push button mechanism is outstanding on this piece. So 20 to 18 does look good. I do like the hexad style profile to the facets. If you look at the bevels, which are mirror polished in the centres of the links, the edges of the links, it's just absolutely gorgeous the way it catches the light. Beautiful lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel, but we've got the additional interest of the mirror polished centre sections, and on the outer links you've got those angular facets. So needless to say, incredibly comfortable piece because it's so low profile. This is only 8.5mm. Now bear in mind, if they had used an automatic caliber, this would be in excess of 12mm. Even with a quartz, one would expect this to be 10mm thick. But they've made the correct decision because they've used a flat stainless steel case back rather than bubble back case back. That reduces the thickness. They've also made the correct decision by using a flat sapphire crystal rather than a double domed sapphire crystal. And again, that reduces the thickness down to only 8.5mm. To get a watch which is below 10mm at this price point is exceptional. And that's the benefit of using the ETA caliber F07.402. It's a very thin quartz movement. Nice angular profile to the tips of the lugs, as you can see. Nice curved undercut to the case. Just look how close the gap is, the tip of the lug to my wrist. It's a very snug fitting piece. And this is particularly why I like flat case backs rather than bubble back case backs, because there is no gap underneath the head of the piece. So needless to say, this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. 8.5 really is the minimum thickness for a daily wear piece on a bracelet like this. 120 meters is very strong specification for a watch that is only 8.5mm. In order to increase the water resistance, one would have to use a thicker sapphire crystal and a thicker case back, but it's unnecessary. 100 meters does suffice for a daily wear piece, and 120 exceeds that. I really like the colours in the dial, which really do look like raindrops on a glass which have caught the light, and that is the inspiration for the Overture. The only thing I would prefer is if it's had clear AR coating, because when I tilt it in the light you can see the blue tint of the AR. The AR coating is working very well because the indices are very shiny and reflective, and also the mirror polished hands are very shiny and reflective. But clear AR coating would improve the clarity, and I know it's a navy blue dial, so blue does suit, but it looks almost black because it's very dark navy. So clear AR coating would work better, but this is subjective. So absolutely gorgeous finishing to the head of the piece. The bezel catches the light. I love the way the edge of the sapphire crystal, the bevel on it, catches the light. Just gorgeous. Very comfortable to wear, 137 grams. Now that is with all the links in the bracelet. So if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, this will fit because it only has a 46mm lug to lug. If you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, it will fit because it's only 39mm by 46. So the proportions are outstanding. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is clearly 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 superluminova. The indices are correctly proportioned. I like the symmetry of the dial. If you look at the 12, 9, 6 and 3 indices, you can see the proportions are good. They are clearly legible. And the benefits of using these large oversized indices, which are applied and mirror polished, is that they allow for plenty of area, plenty of plots for 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 to be applied. The hands are also correctly proportioned. The minute hand extends all the way to the chapter ring, and you can clearly differentiate between the hour and minute hand. So they've got the size of the hands correct, the proportions of the hands are good, the proportions of the indices are good. I also think they've made the correct decision by selecting a quartz caliber without a date complication, because this retains the symmetry of the dial. Had they cited a date complication at 3 or 6 o'clock, that would have spoiled the perfect symmetry of the dial, and I think they've made the right decision by having a no-date version of the Overture, because we have that perfect symmetry. And I like the larger indices at 12, 9, 6 and 3, which add interest to the format of the dial, but also improve the legibility because they are enlarged. One can also see the loomed second hand ticking around the dial, and they deserve credit because often with micro brands between 500 and 600 euro in the mid-tier, they simply have a straight stainless steel or brass second hand without any loom pip on it. And as you can see, this one does have a loom pip and it's clearly legible. You can see the second hand ticking around the dial. And so the legibility, the readability, the functionality of this is outstanding. One can easily read the time in the dark, even the second hand. So they deserve credit. This is not 3 to 4 layers. This is what 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 looks like. Again, I think this could even be further enhanced with clear AR coating because it would allow better clarity than the blue tinted AR coating, and that would allow the BGW9 to glow even brighter than you're looking at. But this is outstanding performance and no cost-cutting measures whatsoever with regards to the loom. So let's discuss the movement used because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So this is powered by the ETA caliber F07.402, which is a quartz movement and it's Swiss made. ETA is very well respected. They make high quality quartz and automatic movements that you'll all be familiar with. This has 3 joules. And the most impressive thing about this is the power reserve and the accuracy. This has an incredible 68-month power reserve from the battery. So 68 months is over 5.5 years. So you can buy this piece and wear it daily for over 5.5 years before you need to change the battery. The other thing is the accuracy. This quartz movement, the ETA F07.402, is incredibly accurate. It has a stated accuracy of plus or minus 10 seconds per year. Just think about that for a moment. That's not plus or minus 10 seconds per day, per week or per month. That is plus or minus 10 seconds per year. So I'll break that down. Plus or minus 10 seconds per year is plus or minus 0.07 seconds per day accuracy. It is incredible accuracy. So Pitzmann deserve full credit because they could have used a less expensive quartz movement, or they could have used a less expensive automatic caliber for this piece. But of course, using an automatic would increase the thickness, and had they used a lower quality quartz, the accuracy wouldn't have been as good. 68 months of power reserve, 5.5 years is exceptional, with plus or minus 10 seconds per year accuracy is exceptional. And at this price point, it is the correct choice. The main benefit, as I've detailed, and my favourite aspect of this piece, is just how thin and low profile it is. 8.5 millimeters. This isn't a 10 millimeter quartz powered piece, as one would expect. 8.5 is one of the thinnest daily wear pieces I have reviewed on my channel. The flat sapphire crystal and flat stainless steel screw down case back mean that this fits very snugly to the wrist, very low profile, and it's very light at only 137 grams. Had they used an automatic, one would expect this to be between 140 to 150 grams. But 137 with all the links in the bracelet is a light piece for 39 millimeters. So it's light, it's comfortable, feels very smooth and snug against the wrist, and the accuracy is incredible, plus or minus 10 seconds per year. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? I'm going to say it is excellent quality throughout. Quality Swiss movement, AR coating, 120 metres is excessive. It only needs 50 to 100 metres. 120 gives it the edge over rivals. AR coating, BGW9, everything about it is outstanding. My favourite aspect is this push button, quick adjust clasp. It's just fantastic. One sees it on the Glashütte original, panel dates at €14,000. That's a high tip piece. This is a mid-tip piece using a push-button external mechanism like this. Very good. They deserve credit for this innovation at this price point. So excellent quality throughout. The quality of the finishing is good. But the value I'm not going to say is excellent. I'm going to say the value is good. So why am I saying good and not excellent? Well, the mid-tier of microbrands between €500 and €600 is highly competitive. This faces some very stiff competition. For example, the Trasker Commuter 38. This goes head to head with it, and that is a very strong piece at that price point, €500 to €600. In order to make this competitive and excellent value, I would like to see Pitzmann reduce the price slightly from €520, which is $549 US. I think in order to make it excellent value, it needs to drop below €500 to hit the sweet spots. And if it was below €500, I would say yes, it is unquestionably excellent quality and excellent value, because it does use the Swiss-made ETA F07.402. It is a high grade of quartz movement, 68-month power reserve, plus or minus 10 seconds per year. So the movement is strong specification. Are there any negatives? The only thing I would like to change is the blue tinted AR coating, change it to clear AR coating, but this is subjective, it's not a negative. Some collectors prefer blue AR, I personally prefer clear. I wouldn't change anything else about it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I would like to see Pitzmann introduce a black enamel version, as well as the Overture dial with the coloured raindrops, because I think that would appeal to a lot of collectors. But it's a good watch, and I'm going to highly recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Pitzmann Overture Gleam. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.